Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Krishna. All right, we are ready to roll. Okay, good to see everybody. I think it's 1, 2 more things and we're ready to go. Muting everybody. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. Gauranga. Here we are. Back to home, back to Godhead. Oh, Elga, you're here. It's good to see you. All right, everybody. I think we're all ready to go. Yep. Sound is working? Yeah. And everybody else is working. Okay, so let's chant Jai Radha Madhava, as we usually do before the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Vihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatakacharya also Teta Satishi Shimad His Divine Grace Savaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya I said it right. Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukund Radhagunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathurdam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Munamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lalasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Gaur All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nirvashesha Shunyabhari Paschatya Deja Taradi. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who kindly opened my eyes while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance, and He opened them up with the transcendental knowledge. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshuram Miritam Jena Tasmai Shigadaveda Maha. So we're going to continue the Gita study today. We are on chapter 70, not of the Bhagavad Gita, but of the course. Actually, we've done 70 sessions so far. That's quite amazing. 70 sessions, I mean 70 hours. Wow. Whew. That's like, that's almost 3 full days talking. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the Bhagavad Gita. We're on the 10th chapter. And I think it's the 10th verse we're on today. Was it 8, 9, 10? Yeah. Should be the 10th verse. Hold on a second. Whoop. Actually, we have to go to the verse. Yeah. Let's. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter. Beautiful verse. This is actually one of my favorite. Of course, all the verses in the Bhagavad Gita are my favorite verses. But this verse in particular is very reassuring. All right, I'm going to clear the screen a little bit more. Okay, very important verse. Tesham sadadi yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadam Buddhi Yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Now remember, the last two were also nutshell verses. We're talking about 8, 9, 10, and 11 nutshell verses. Hope everybody remembers them. First one, aham sarvasya prabhu matak sarvapavati matwavajantamam buddhavamastamapatam. Which basically the first verse, verse 8, Krishna says, I am the source of everything. And therefore the wise worship me with all their hearts. Everything comes from me. Therefore they worship me with all their hearts. Anyway, second verse is Machata Madgata Prana Bodhyantas Cha Parasparam Katyantas Jamam Nijam Dushanti Cha Ravanti Cha. And how they worship Krishna with all their hearts? They share, they Krishna Katha with each other. Machata Madgata Prana Bodhyantas Cha Parasparam Katyantas Cha Mam Nijam Dushanti Cha Ravanti Cha. And in that way, the devotees are happy and satisfied. And how do they know how to do it? There's this verse. Tesham sadadinam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami yudim Buddhi Yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. And we'll hear the translation in a second. Tesham, unto them, asatata yuktanam, always engaged, bhajatam, in rendering devotional service, pritipurvakam, in loving ecstasy. The Dami, I give Buddhi Yogam, real intelligence, tam, that, yena, by which, mam, unto me, upayanti, come, te, they. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So if someone wants Krishna, of course this refers to the verse Krishna says, the 4th chapter, Yayatam aprapajante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. As people approach me, I reciprocate with them. Or as Prabhupada translates, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So, the point is, if one serves Krishna with devotion and love, Krishna will give you the right buddhi, as mentioned here, Buddhi Yoga. That's intelligence, understanding, by which you can perform devotional service. So Krishna gives everything you need. And of course, as we read before, what is it? Ananyas chintayo tomam yejanak paripasate tesham nityavyuktamam yoga shemi vahamayam. For those who were dedicated to me. Similar verse. I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. Very similar. Understanding. So purport by Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Buddhi Yoga is very significant. We may remember that in the second chapter, the Lord, instructing Arjuna, said that he had spoken to him of many things and that he would instruct him in the way of Buddhi Yoga. Now, Buddhi Yoga is explained. Buddhi Yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness. That is the highest intelligence. And here Prabhupada is going to explain what the word Buddhi Yoga means. Buddhi means intelligence. And yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. Also, technically, it comes from the Sanskrit root, yuj, which means to connect. All right, technically, that's what the word means. In other words, how to connect with Krishna, how to connect with God. That's the meaning of the word yoga. And in English, we have a word that derives from the Sanskrit word. It's yoke. Right? Yoke. Because many of you may not know what the word yoke means. It means to connect, basically the same thing. And we also have a word in spiritual life for religion. Religion. Religion is composed of two parts, re and ligion. And ligion is like the ligament. Like a ligament connects different things, and with the bones like that and muscles, or ligament. So it means connection. Ligare, means to connect. And re means again. So really the word religion means to connect again. And of course, with God. Not to connect again with your old buddies. Maybe your old buddies in the spiritual world, but not your old buddies in this world. So religion, religare, yoga, means to connect. Anyway. So when one tries to go back home, back to God, and take fully to Krishna consciousness and devotional service, his action is called Buddhi Yoga, because his intelligence is fixed. That's the secret. In other words, Buddhi Yoga is the process by which one gets out of entanglement into this material world. The ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. People do not know this, therefore the association of devotees and bona fide spiritual master are important. One should know that the goal is Krishna, and when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly, progressively traversed, and the ultimate goal is achieved. When a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to the fruits of activities, he is acting in karma yoga. In other words, he's offering things to Krishna, but he's still addicted to the fruits of activities. When one knows that the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he's acting in jnana yoga. And when he knows the goal, seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness and devotion, he just wants to love Krishna and devotional service, he's acting in bhakti yoga, or Buddhi Yoga, which is the complete yoga. This complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage of life. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization, but if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, tell me about it. Then Krishna from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. In other words, there's your little conscience. That's Krishna, the super soul. Super soul is talking to you that, hey buddy, you're on the wrong track. The qualification is that a person always engage himself in Krishna consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of service. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love, not just work. Do it with love. That's really important. Let's say if I am serving someone and they ask me for a glass of water, and I bring them a glass of water and I say, here's a glass of water. I mean, that's the opposite of love. But even if I'd say it mechanically, here is your glass of water. Take water. It's not so pleasing. If someone is serving or doing something for you, and they're not doing it voluntarily. I mean, love means voluntarily. Not you twist someone's arm. You force them to do it. You threaten them. But if they're doing it voluntarily, it's very pleasing. But if they're doing it because they get paid, that's really bad. Really bad. And if they didn't get paid, they wouldn't do it. It's like going to a restaurant, if the waiter, waitress, whatever, bartender, wasn't getting paid, they wouldn't work. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. Krishna is so kind. Very important verse. Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam pritipurvatam vidami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are devoted to me, and even to those who have a little devotion to me, I give them direction by which they can come. Very important verse. And the final verse of the 4 Chatushloki verses. Chatushloki means the 4 verses, which are nutshell verses in the Gita, is text 11. And this is very, very reassuring too. Tesham evanukam partam ajnana jam tamaha nasham yatma vavasto jnana dipena vashvata. Tesham, for them, eversly anukampa artam, to show special mercy. Aham, I. Ajnana jam, due to ignorance, tamaha, darkness. Nasyami, dispel atmavava within their hearts. Sta, situated, jnana, of knowledge. Dipena, with the lamp, vashvata, glowing. To show them special mercy. I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Isn't that like Chetodarpanamarjam, Bhava Mahadvagni Nirapanam? By chanting the Lord's holy names, then Bhava Mahadvagni, this burning of the material energy, Nirapanam becomes eradicated, extinguished. So the same thing, the holy name purifies us. And let's see, another verse from the Bhagavatam, let's see, it comes to mind, is, if I remember the verse in the Bhagavatam, Nashamat Nibhavashto Gyanadipena Bhashvata. That I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge this darkness born of ignorance. Actually, the same thing. Nashama Atmabhava Yanadipena Bhashvata. Hey, that is this verse. I'm not quoting the Bhagavatam. Anyway, there's another verse. Oh yeah. Srindatas Wakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantok Stau Yavadrani Vidnoti Sarit Satam. Same thing. I, as the well-wisher in their hearts, when one Srinvatas Wakata Krishna, when one chants and hears about Krishna, I in their hearts, Srinvatas Wakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, it's the most pious activity. Vidyantok Stau Yavadrani, myself situated in their hearts, Vidonoti Savitsatam, I am the well-wisher, and I destroy the darkness. Wow. Pretty much the same thing in the Bhagavatam. So, purport. So that gives us hope. Our hearts right now, Prabhupada described one time that our hearts have all these impurities on them. And he said if we try to use a material means of getting rid of the impurities. Oh, I have this ignorance, let me get rid of it. Then Prabhupada described it's like washing a piece of coal. When you wash a piece of coal, nothing gets clean, and you simply get dirty, or dirtier. Okay, purport. Lord Chaitanya, when Lord Chaitanya was in Benares promulgating the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, thousands of people were following him. Prakashananda Saraswati, a very influential and learned scholar in Benares, at that time, Lord Chaitanya, for being a sentimentalist. Sometimes Mayavadi philosophers criticize the devotees because they think that most of the devotees are in the darkness of ignorance. That would be horrible. And whoops. I'm just checking the chat. Ignorance are philosophically naive sentimentalists. Actually, it is not a fact. They are very, very learned scholars who have put forth the philosophy of devotion. But even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of a spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within his heart. So the sincere devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness cannot be without knowledge. The only qualification is that one carry out devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. All right. Two stories. The Prabhupada is alluding to here, Lord Chaitanya, and I told the story before in the previous class, but we'll tell it again. Lord Chaitanya went to speak to these Mayavadi impersonalists, headed up by Prakashananda Saraswati. Not Prakashananda, yes, Prakashananda Saraswati. So he went to speak to these Mayavadi impersonalists and who were previously criticizing him. And when he went into the assembly, he had sat down where they all washed their feet. And they were shocked. Not only because he was sitting down there, but because he was manifesting an effulgence like 10,000 times brighter than the sun. And the head of the impersonalists, Prakashananda Saraswati, took him by the arm and sat him down in a respectable place and said to him, basically the impersonalists think they were everyone's Narayan and thought he had realized he was Narayan, even though we understand he was already Narayan. Anyway, so said to him, you are a sannyasi in the very respectable Bharti Sampradaya. Why do you hang out with all these sentimental people just chanting the Lord's holy names? And Lord Chaitanya replied, actually my spiritual master told me I was a fool. Basically, I wasn't qualified to study Vedanta, and told me to chant Hare Krishna. I started chanting Hare Krishna, experienced symptoms of ecstasy, went back to my spiritual master. My spiritual master said, I'm very pleased with you because you've achieved the goal of life, love of God. The point being, if one follows the order of the spiritual master, then one achieves the goal of life, even if one doesn't even have the intelligence to read. Of course, then Lord Chaitanya began to philosophically defeat these impersonalists, and they were impressed, and they became devotees and apologized for following Shankaracharya too strictly. But the other story I was going to tell is a story about Lord Chaitanya coming across this illiterate Brahmin who could not read, but he was trying to read the Bhagavad Gita and couldn't pronounce anything properly, and he was crying at the same time. And Lord Chaitanya asked him, why are you crying when you're reading the Bhagavad Gita? And this gentleman said, my spiritual master told me to read the Bhagavad Gita, but I'm illiterate. But as I'm reading, I'm actually perceiving what happened in the Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna is driving the chariot of Arjuna. God has become the chariot driver for his devotee. And just thinking about this, I'm experiencing symptoms of ecstasy. And Lord Chaitanya said, you are the real knower of the Bhagavad Gita. So if someone's a sincere devotee, even if they're not philosophical, they don't know the difference between a jiva, of course they shouldn't, it's between the jiva and Shiva. They must know that. I mean, it doesn't take much brains to know the difference between jiva and Shiva. So, but even if they have no philosophical knowledge, they don't know the Shat Shandarbhas, that's very complicated. or about the 6 philosophical theses, they can still go back to Godhead. They simply love Krishna. All you need is love. The Mayavadi philosophers think that without discriminating, you cannot have pure knowledge. For them, this answer is given by the Supreme Lord. Those who are engaged in pure devotional service, even though they without sufficient education, in other words, they may not know all the Sanskrit verses, sometimes people criticize us for that, and even without sufficient knowledge of the Vedic principles, are still helped by the Supreme God, as stated in this verse. In other words, we simply chant Krishna's names with devotion. Krishna will guide us. We should try to learn as much philosophy as possible in order to understand. We talk about Sambandha aspects of the philosophy, and Abhideya aspects of the philosophy, and Prayojana. Sambandha means all the different energies of the Lord and the Lord himself and the relationship between all of them. Abhideya means how to act in devotional service, perfect your human form of life. And Prayojana means what happens when you get perfection. But even if you don't know all that philosophical stuff, not just stuff, if you chant, these things will be revealed in your heart. The Lord chant purely, submissively, with devotion. The Lord tells Arjuna that basically there's no possibility of understanding the supreme absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, simply by speculating. For the supreme truth is so great that it is not possible to understand him or to achieve him simply by making a mental effort. Man can go on speculating for several million years, and if he is not devoted, if he is not a lover of the supreme truth, he will never understand Krishna, or the supreme truth. Only by devotional service is the supreme truth Krishna pleased, and by his inconceivable energy he can reveal himself to the heart of the pure devotee. And we wrote previously, Naham Prakasha Sarvasha Yogamaya Samavrata. That for those who are not devotees, Krishna is covered by his Yogamaya, internal potency, which manifests itself as also the external potency, which keeps one from understanding Krishna. Because Krishna does not want to be understood unless someone loves him. The pure devotee always has Krishna within his heart, and with the presence of Krishna, who is just like the sun, the darkness of ignorance is at once dissipated. This is the special mercy rendered to the pure devotee of Krishna. Due to the contempt of material association through many, many millions of births, one's heart is always covered with the dust of materialism. Can you imagine what would happen if you didn't take a bath for several days? All right. Can you imagine what would happen if you didn't take a bath for several weeks? Can you imagine what would happen if you didn't take a bath for several years? Can you imagine what would happen if you didn't take a bath for your Can you imagine what would happen if you didn't take a bath for many lifetimes? Well, that's really what's happened with the subtle body. You got all these impressions upon the subtle body, trauma, just like in this lifetime. Okay, we have certain psychological characteristics, and many of them are due to childhood trauma. I used to joke with everybody about how I was traumatized when I was young by my mother trying to force me to eat borscht with beets in them. And from that point on, whenever I even heard the word beet, not beet with a stick, the beet, the red thing, I said, oh my God, what a horrible word. And so I was traumatized, and it took me a little while, but now, from time to time, I eat beets, and I like them. But it took me a long time, a lot of chanting. I had to chant very sincerely to be able to eat beets again. So, anyway, little humor there, of course. So, the point is, just a little thing happened in this lifetime, and it affects our consciousness dramatically. You can imagine all these things that happen in past lifetimes. That's why sometimes people are born to have certain phobias. A phobia is a fear of something, like claustrophobia. Every time they get in an elevator, they scream. or phobia against aquaphobia, water. They're afraid of water. I mean, we are really conditioned by things that have happened since almost time immemorial. We're in bad shape, buddy. But there is hope. By chanting the Lord's holy names, the dust on the heart, all this dirt becomes cleansed. Normally, if we don't chant, we actually do things like sweeping the dust under the rug. It's there, and it's going to come up. But we may be unaware of it for some times. But when one engages in devotional service and constantly chants Hare Krishna, the dust quickly clears and one is elevated to the platform of pure knowledge. We've all experienced that. By chanting, Krishna reveals himself in knowledge and we get bliss. Wow. That's the greatest gift Prabhupada has given us, the holy names. The ultimate goal of Vishnu is attained only by this chant and by devotional service, not by mental speculation or argument. The pure devotee does not have to worry about the material necessities of life. He need not be anxious, because when he removes the darkness from his heart, everything is provided automatically by the Supreme Lord, who is pleased by the loving devotional service of the devotee. Now, it's not that, oh right, Krishna, I'm chanting the holy name, and I ain't going to work anymore, I ain't going to cook for myself anymore, I ain't going to clean, ain't going to do a damn thing. And your business is to serve me, Krishna. That's nonsense. Because if one has that attitude, it's not a devotee. So a devotee works hard, understands that the results were given to him by Krishna, but if he doesn't work, he is not really a devotee. If he's just lazy and he has the opportunity to work, then he's lazy. It's called ignorance. In ignorance, one is thinking one's determination. We're going to read about this later in the Bhagavad Gita. One's determination never goes beyond dreaming, procrastination. Like, oh, in the future, I know I can chant purely in the future. I know I'm going to be more enthusiastic in the future. Right now, I'm just going through my Saturn period. You don't understand. I'm unhappy. No. No, get off your, B-U-T-T, and do something. And then Krishna will provide. But it's not that you make Krishna your servant. Like Prabhupada would comment about the Christian chant, give us this day our daily bread. You're turning God into a baker. That's not devotion. If you're devoted, you will work hard, like Srila Prabhupada did. This is the essence of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. By studying Bhagavad Gita, one can become a soul completely surrendered to the Supreme Lord and engage himself in pure devotional service. As the Lord takes charge, one becomes completely free from all kinds of materialistic endeavors. But he's still endeavoring, but they're no longer materialistic. He's still earning a living. He's still working hard. But the results are going to Krishna, and he's doing it gladly because he knows the results, he knows the purpose of why he's doing it. That's the point. Okay, and that's the last of the nutshell verses. And now we go on to Arjuna's realization after he hears all this. Wow, who are you, Krishna? He tells Krishna who he is. He doesn't ask Krishna. So in this next verse. Very, very important. And let's see, what else I want to say about these verses. And then he substantiates this, his epistemological point. How do you know what you know? He substantiates his statements, Arjuna does, by referring to other authorities. Wonderful, important verses. So here we go. Arjuna vacha param brahma param dhamma pavitram paramam bhavan purusham shashtam divyam atidevam jam vibhum ahospam nisagatsarve devarshir nararastata Asito devalo vyasa swayam jaiva bhavishime. Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said, Param, supreme, Brahma, truth. Param, supreme, Dhamma, sustenance. Pavitram, pure. Paramam, supreme. Bhavan, you. Purusham, personality. Shashvatam, eternal. Divyam, transcendental Adidevam, the original Lord. Jam, born. Vibhum, the greatest. Ahu, say. Twam, of you. Rishaya, sages. Sarve, all. Deva Rishihi, the sage among the demigods. Naradaha, Narada, Tata, also. Asitaha, Asita, Devalaha, Devala. Vyasaha, Vyasa. Swayam, personally. Cha, also. But certainly, Bhavishi, you are explaining may unto me. So here's the proof. Arjuna realizes here. Arjuna said, you are the supreme personality, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirm this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So he's using different types of proof. Now, one type of proof is that's what Krishna says. And the other type of proof is that's what all the other great personalities say. So this is something called Guru Shastra Sadhu. Checks and balances in our epistemological understanding. So the Guru says something, and you can check it with the sadhus. Sadhus means other saintly persons, not bogus saintly persons, but real saintly persons like Narada, Sita, and you can confirm it with Shastra. Shastra means the Vedic literatures. So this is like a check and balance, like in the government you have the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, which in America don't check and balance each other very well, but theoretically they were supposed to. You know, we got the executive who's trying to check and balance every single living entity in this country, who shall remain nameless, he who cannot paint. So anyway, let's see, let's unpack this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, that means the original aspect of the personality of Godhead, Krishna. The ultimate abode, that means shelter. The purest, because Krishna doesn't associate with material energy. And the absolute truth. There's no relativity here. Relative truth would be, okay, let me give an example of relative truth. Relative truth is apples are wonderful. Apples are the best fruit. That's relative. You may think that. I may think that. Or let's use mangoes. Mangoes are the best fruit. That's a relative truth. Because someone else may think chickus are the best fruit. In fact, Krishna thinks that. Devotees say that chickus are Krishna's favorite fruit. In Venezuela, they would call chickus nispero. I remember when I was living in Venezuela, they said nispero. And anyway, chickus in India. So that's relative because it's based upon, my taste, your taste, and we're all entitled to our own tastes. Or just like even for me to say, okay, it's hot outside. That's a relative statement. I know it's hot, but it's a relative statement. Because for someone, it may be cold. It's not an absolute statement. It's relative. So absolute truth means the truth that is always the highest is always the highest, regardless of whatever vision you approach it from. And then Krishna is eternal, soul is eternal, transcendental, obviously. He's the original person, Adi Purusham, never born, we're never born either. And he's the greatest that we describe as Bhagavan. He has all the qualities in the highest degree, all beauty, renunciation, all fame, all strength, like that, all intelligence, like that. So, and then he confirms this, quoting the sages. So if we're going to accept someone as God, he better have his ducks in order. That means, if you don't know that expression, he better have this Guru Shastra Sadhu stuff in order. Otherwise, he's just a rascal. Simply a rascal. Like you'd say about something, there's different people declare themselves to be God. So you say, okay, is there a verse from the Vedic literatures that justifies your statement? No. Is there great sages like Narada who justify it? No. Who justifies it? Me. With some tricks. So, people are so foolish, they accept someone as God when he cannot be verified as God. And he dies. Anyway, so just like one of these God people, one time he was supposed to be producing a Shiva Linga from his mouth. Really powerful, mystic power. And so someone did a video of it. And in that video, they saw that he slipped a Shiva Linga into his mouth. And then when it came time, it came up. I mean, that takes some control. I mean, I wouldn't want to swallow a Shiva Linga, and I don't have the power to have it come up again, but that doesn't mean the person is God. In these two verses, Supreme Lord, and we were mentioning the other day that there was one of these God people, and he had the ability to produce vibhutis, ashes from different things. So one of my godbrothers, whose name was Atma Tattva, happened to sneak back into this guy's room, and the guy's closet. And in the closet, he found all these different shirts and coats and everything like that. They had hidden pockets. Wow. Why would someone have hidden pockets? I don't have any hidden pockets in my shirt. And then he went into the back room, and he found a bunch of little old ladies there, sewing up little packages of vibhutis. Anyway. So in these two verses, the Supreme Lord gives a chance to the Mayavadi philosopher, for here it is clear that the Supreme is different from the individual soul. Arjuna, after hearing the essential 4 verses of Bhagavad Gita, which is what we just talked about, 4 verses, 8, 9, 10, 11, in this chapter, became completely free from all doubts and accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He at once boldly declared, "You are the Parampara." That means the Supreme Spiritual Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And previously, Krishna stated that he is the originator of everything and everyone. That is, everything comes from me. Every demigod and every human being is dependent on him. Men and demigods, out of ignorance, think that they are absolute and independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That ignorance is removed perfectly by the discharge of devotional service. This has already been explained in the previous verse by the Lord. Now, by his grace, Arjuna is accepting him as the supreme truth in concordance with the Vedic injunction. It is not that because Krishna is Arjuna's intimate friend, Arjuna is flattering him by calling him the Supreme Personality of God as the absolute truth. He's my buddy, so I should agree with him. So, now he's proving it by quoting from others. Whatever Arjuna says in these 2 verses is confirmed by Vedic truth. Vedic injunctions affirm that only one who takes the devotional service of the Supreme Lord can understand him, whereas others cannot. Each and every word of this verse spoken by Arjuna is confirmed by Vedic injunction. In the Kena Upanishad, it is stated that the Supreme Brahman is the rest for everything, and Krishna has already explained that everything is resting on him. The Mundaka Upanishad confirms that the Supreme Lord, in whom everything is resting, can be realized only by those who engage constantly in thinking of him. This constant thinking of Krishna is smaranam, one of the methods of devotional service. Remember, we talked about the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, hearing; kirtanam, chanting; smaranam, and then one begins, smaranam, to remember. Then one begins to serve, parasevanam. It is only by devotional service to Krishna that one can understand his position and get rid of this material body. Get rid of it. Now, getting rid of the material body doesn't mean getting rid, but really getting rid of the conception that this body is yours. And when you don't have that conception that this body is yours, and you have the conception that this body belongs to Krishna, It's not a material body anymore. It's not that, hey, now I'm Krishna conscious, let's get rid of this thing. No. Suicide is not allowed in this Krishna consciousness, but we get rid of the conception of the material body. Then it spiritualizes spiritual body. Maybe it's not a eternal body, but it's spiritualized. Not maybe, it ain't your eternal body. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is accepted as the purest of the pure. One who understands that Krishna is the purest of the pure can become purified from all sinful activities. One cannot be disinfected from sinful activities unless he surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. Arjuna's acceptance of Krishna as the Supreme Pure complies with the injunctions of Vedic literature. This is also confirmed by great personalities, of whom Narada is the chief. And I remember who I described who Narada was? Narada means the person who travels everywhere. And he doesn't worry about the coronavirus when he's traveling. He doesn't have a mask. He has a spiritual body. One proof of his spiritual body was once upon a time, Narada was talking to this rascal Ravan. And Ravan had called the Chandrahas, which could cut through anything. It cut through metal like it was butter. And Ravan got so angry at Narada, he went to slice Narada to pieces, and the sword just went through him. And he asked Narada, what kind of body do you have? And Narada, spiritual body. And guess what, buddy? You used to have the same type of body, but now you're here. So as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one should always meditate upon him and enjoy one's transcendental relationship with him. He is the supreme existence. Transcendental relations means you're a servant, you are a friend of Krishna, you are a parent of Krishna, or have that mood of a parent, or you're a gopi, or you're serving the gopis. So, this is, so we'll say the emails at the same time. This is transcendental relationship. He is free from bodily needs, birth and death. Not only does Arjuna confirm this, but all the Vedic literatures, the Puranas and histories. In all Vedic literatures, Krishna is thus described. And the Supreme Lord himself also says, in the 4th chapter, although I am unborn, I appear on this earth to establish religious principles. Wow. Parichanaya Sadanam Vinashaya Chatushkatam. He is the supreme origin. He has no cause, for he is the cause of all causes, and everything is emanating from him. This perfect knowledge can be had by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Here, Arjuna expresses himself through the grace of Krishna. If we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, we should accept the statements in these 2 verses. This is called the Parampara, acceptance of the disciplic succession. Actually, this is a very important principle. I touched upon it lightly before in the 4th chapter of the Gita, when we talked about Imam Parampara Pratam Imam Rajarshaya Vidahu, that the Gita was originally passed down in a system of disciplic succession, and there was one particular chain or group of links in the chain that were actually broken, so the Gita had to be reestablished. So Parampara system means that you have to have perfect knowledge in the beginning, which is always given by God. There's a statement in the Vedic literatures, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam, that perfect knowledge, dharma, could only come from Bhagavan, Krishna. And then it's passed down to different personalities, such as Lord Brahma, Lakshmi. She's a guru. Very interesting. Lakshmi is the guru in one of the primary sampradayas. People say you can't have women guru. Well, the principal guru, Lakshmi Devi. So Lakshmi Sampradaya, Kumara Sampradaya, or Rudra Sampradaya. Anyway, Sampradaya is Parampara. So anyway, so you have Krishna and the first person, the second person, but each link in that chain has to be qualified because the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So if you have a weak link, the chain's useless. So one has to examine if there is an unbroken chain. coming down from Krishna. And we have that unbroken chain. And of course, we have Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, who is in the Brahma Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya to be precise. And he is simply passing down the knowledges. He has received from his spiritual master, and his spiritual master received from his spiritual master, and his spiritual master received from his spiritual master since time immemorial, without changing. So we can go back to what Lord Brahma said and see, hey, it's the same thing Prabhupada's saying. And how can we go back? There's the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchananda Vigraha Anadir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Wow. Let's go back all the way. It's the same thing. Prabhupada says exactly the same thing. So things equal to the same thing or equal to each other. Axiomatic. So we have to examine this disciplic succession. It said, unless one is in the disciplic succession, he cannot understand Bhagavad Gita. Also, his mantra won't work. Sampradaya vinayi mantras te nishpalamataha. That if you get a mantra that's not coming down in disciplic succession, it ain't going to work. Because it ain't connected. It's like something not connected to the powerhouse may look good for all intents and purposes. It ain't connected to the powerhouse, so you ain't got any power there, buddy. It is not possible by so-called academic education, you read the Bhagavad Gita till hell freezes over. Unfortunately, those proud of their academic education, PhD actually gets piled higher and deeper in something that usually you flush down the toilet. Despite so much evidence in Vedic literatures, they stick to their obstinate that Krishna is an ordinary person. The example Prabhupada gave, it's like licking on a bottle of honey without opening the honey. I mean, for example, let's say you try licking on a bottle of honey without opening the honey. It's kind of stupid, especially in this age of coronavirus. You shouldn't try licking on anything. So if you do that, you'll think, yeah, honey has no good taste to it. But you're stupid. You haven't opened the bottle. You haven't gone through the right process to taste honey. You have your own particular process. I mean, if people didn't know about bottles, how to open them or anything like that, they'd be bewildered like that and they misunderstand what honey is. Okay, on that happy note, we will continue tomorrow with text 14. Let us open up for questions. Give me 1 second. Participants. Okay, now you are allowed to ask questions, and hopefully I will hear you. Who has questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Wow. Veda Priya, or Tulsi Priya.
Okay, so you spoke about how we developed the love for the spiritual master, and I know in the past you've said how as we develop our attachment and feelings and love for the guru, we're simultaneously that is for Krishna. I was wondering if you could talk about that, please.
Well, you know that song from the 60s, all you need is love, love, all you ever need is love. You know. Anyways, but the love has to be based on knowledge. It's not like, if it gets too sentimental, it should be based on understanding who the guru is, what he's doing, and also listening to what he or she, we have female gurus, or we will soon, what he or she says. Love, you could say, I really love you, I really love you, I really love you. Well, can you do this? I don't know about that. I got a lot of other things to do, but I do love you. I do love you. Imagine, let's say, being between a husband and his wife. It's interesting, in America, I was just reading that, oh my God, 60% of all marriages, we're not talking about divorce, people are not faithful to each other. So anyway, getting back to the point. So let's say there's a husband and his wife, and the husband is saying, I really love you, I really love you, and the wife says, can you give me some flowers? No, dear, I love you, I'm too busy. I mean, that reminds me of the story of Tulsi Das. This is a very interesting story. For those of you who are from Fiji or from India, you'll understand the story. Tulsidas is very famous because he composed the Ramacharitamanasas, which is the Hindi version of the Ramayana, his interpretation of the Ramayana in Hindi. Okay, so there's a story about Tulsi. Really interesting. He's a nice guy. But anyway, so what happened is that he was madly in love with his wife. Don't try that at home. So anyway, so he was madly in love with his wife. And he was just thinking her 24 hours a day. I forget what her name was. Let's just say Priya. Priya, Priya, I can never stop singing Priya. Anyway, so he was...
Ratnavali Maharaj.
That's you? No, hopefully it's not you. Anyways.
No.
Anyway, so... Oh, Ratnavali. Her name was Ratnavali? Okay, thank you. Ratnavali. So anyway, so it's a really famous story. So he had inherited from his wife's family a cloth shop. And basically, he tried to go into business. But the problem with his going into business was that each time there was a really nice piece of cloth that he could sell, he thought it's too nice for the other person to buy. It belongs to my wife. So every day he'd bring home like piles of cloth, like this high, for his wife. and just like he was madly in love. It's nice. It's a love story. Anyway, so he was madly in love, piles of cloth for his wife. And his wife said, where's the money, Prabhu? And he didn't make any money because he was just so much in love with his wife that he was just giving her all the cloth, all the nice pieces of cloth. And she said to him something like, if you had as much love for Krishna as you did for me, or Ram, she said Ram, sorry. She was a Ram Bhakta. Then you'd be well situated, a good devotee. And he went, oh my God! Oh, it was like a spear in the heart. And so he left. And he devoted himself to Lord Ram. Of course, there's a little bit of a problem in that story because he had a really bad attitude towards women. If those of you who don't know that he did say, oh my God, he said certain things like, 3 things get better with beating: mridanga, dog, and a wife. So don't follow what he says. So anyway, but he glorified Lord Ram, which we like very much, but the other stuff we're not really in favor of, as we mentioned. So the moral of the story is that he didn't do what his wife wanted. Like that. So love means you do what the beloved wants. I just love you, Guru Maharaj. I love you, Krishna. But I'm too busy loving you to do anything for you. Anyway. So love is actually quite practical according to Rupa Goswami, Anyabhilashatashunyam, Jnanakarma Napratam, Anukulyena Krishnana Shilanam Bhakti Uttamam. To be active in serving Krishna, doing what he wants, and to do it with a spirit of devotion, with a mood of bhakti. So that's actually love. Love. Infatuation is different. I mean, many times you find people that really get infatuated with each other. Infatuation means basically, you turn me on. I hate to use that expression. Is someone really like... Anyway, whenever I see them, the hairs stand on end. Of course, that's good with Krishna, your hairs stand on end. Because I don't have too many hairs left to stand on end. It's a problem. So anyway, so that's infatuation. But love means utsahan daryatatat karma pravartanat. According to Rupa Goswami, always being enthusiastic to serve the beloved 24 hours a day. Never deviating from one's enthusiasm. That's pretty high standard, isn't it? never deviate, 24 hours a day. Utsahan, enthusiastic, nishya daryat, patient, determined. Tata karma pravartana, doing what the beloved wants. Anyway, Sangat Jagat, don't associate with anyone the beloved doesn't like. Anyway, love. Okay, good question about love. I love my car. I really do. And if I had a Tesla, it would be so much more love. Yes, I love a Tesla more than a Prius. Okay, so I love Hawaii. The weather is always nice. Okay, Praneshwar is getting ready. Ask me another question.
Yes.
What's up, Praneshwar?
Gurudev, we engrossed in the bodily platform, to do the job, to do bodily activities. But how to realize we belongs to Krishna?
You just try to understand that when you do your bodily activities, you should try to understand that you're doing it for Krishna. Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you give away should be done as an offering to me, right?
Yes.
It's an adjustment of the mind. It's not that difficult. Like if I go to sleep, when I go to sleep, I go to sleep thinking, I'm sleeping now to rest up so I have enough energy to serve you tomorrow, Krishna. So in that way, I'm dovetailing my sleep. If I'm eating prasadam. I'm glorifying you by eating prasadam, glorifying Krishna. By eating prasadam to get enough energy. If I play around with my computer, I'm playing around with my computer to glorify Krishna. So it's just a question of a little mental adjustment. It's not that difficult. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Continue doing more or less the same things. Right? So why am I, you're a businessman. Praneshwar is a really big businessman. He may look like an innocent, young, naive young man, but he's a Mahavaniya. He's a great businessman. And so, yes, there were like thousands of girls lined up to marry him. So anyway, so as you're doing business, just think you're doing it for Krishna. All right? And use the results for Krishna. Not just think you're doing it for Krishna, but use the results for Krishna. He's a big Delhi guy. Okay. Who else has a question today? Question. I think everybody's questioned out today. Praneshwar, Nalini
Hare
Khan?
Krishna Gurudev.
Uh-oh.
Sumuk.
Okay.
No question.
Let Nalini Khan ask a question. He hasn't asked a question. What's your question, Nalini Khan?
No question, Guru.
No question. No. Okay, let Sumuk ask the question.
Gurudev,
Well, I'm getting.
yes, you can hear me, Gurudev?
I can hear you.
Okay, Gurudev, Hare Krishna. Please
Why
accept
am
my
I
humble
getting that?
obeisance.
I'm hearing myself. Oh,
Hare
Shalagram
Krishna.
is there too.
No, Gurudev?
So, I'm just waving. To some people. Anyway, so all right, so it's like senior.
Okay, Gurudev.
Just ask your questions and
My
put yourself on mute.
ask the question now.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Gurudev, my mother is like bedridden now, and she can't get out of bed now. We have to give the shower, everything on the bed now. So what I do, I go and read Bhagavad every day to her, and put proper japa for her, and border can beats for her, and give her chanting basis, chanting a little bit round, whatever she can do, and just please bless her. Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay. I will bless her. Okay. Thank you. All right. Anybody else have a question? I guess not. I guess the internet looks a little slow right now. Everybody's a little jumpy. Okay. And I guess it's good to see you, Elga. Good to see everybody. Anyway, so we'll see everybody tomorrow, same time, same station. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaura Premananda, Hari 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 Bol.